After that recent heady and hectic best of three between Ryder Rohan and Borain, let's take a look at another replay submitted by a different XMT member. We've got Dutch Skink here, who confusingly brought no skinks. Instead, he's got a very thick build here with Lord Mazdamundi and the Shredder of Lustria. We've got Star Chamber Guardians and Saurus Warriors. Oh no, just kidding. There's one red crest here. My apologies, Dutch Skink. Yes. And then Saurus Spears. We've got Saurus Warriors with shields. We've got a Doom Bull charging in with the Blood Brute Behemoth, and Gore Bull just straight up ready to tumble in a single entity engagement. Brave Shaman of Death, Ungor Spearman Herds, and the Grog Hooves, as well as a couple more Senti Gores scattered around. Pretty straightforward, although I will say the Star Chamber Guardian support makes this engagement in particular not the best idea, in my opinion. I mean, already you can see that, yeah, Gorbul's being screened away from the single entity, or Doom Bull, rather. So instead, you've got just Gorbull and the Blood Brute, you know, taking on these two mammoth single entities. I mean, they're not literally mammoths, no. Anyway, bad joke. But then the rest of the Saurus just kind of form up in a nice defensive position here. Sort of dare the Beastmen to come in. We see a purple sun being cast, and one of the issues with this purple sun is that it actually makes contact mostly with the Shredder of Lustria rather than infantry that it was probably being targeted on. The Star Chamber Guardians are taking some fairly significant damage, but the response, Ruination of Cities, just absolutely clubs the unit of Ungor Spearman Herd. And yeah, the Blood Brute Behemoth, again, getting isolated away. I mean, Gorbull just gets straight up smashed. And then Blood Brute Behemoth gets isolated away, so you often hear me talk about single entity engagements. Numbers usually win, but in a situation like this, where the engagement didn't play out very cleanly, I missed a comet landing right there as well on the Beastmen, and in particular, you know, the infantry support advantage, I would say Star Chamber Guardians being some of the best halberds in the game would be equivalent power level to another like strong single entity in this type of an equation. So yeah, the Beastmen, although technically having a numbers advantage on single entities, do just end up dying a little bit here in that engagement. The Blood Brute has plenty of capacity to heal itself if it could fight on units which won't deal too much damage to it, like here, you know, chasing these red crests or fighting the non-spear Saurus would be able to regenerate some HP, but even fighting the Spear Saurus, they have such hefty weapon strength, that anti-large bonus, that I don't know that it's going to be a net positive. You'd probably just be taking damage. So, we'll see here. We shall see. This is one way, it's just mass up your single entities to just carve up the Spear unit. That's a little bit of a better way. It certainly means that like less of the Spear models are going to be getting into contact. Ideally. Right now that's not actually happening, per se, although he's getting some support from the Ungors. Yeah, Doom Bull also lands there to drop that dazed contact effect, and it's all over for the isolated Saurus Spear. But here comes the cow, as they say in Stronghold, or Crusader Remastered, which I have been playing a decent amount lately. Maybe I'll make a video about that. But anyway, yeah, I'm just taking in the sights at this point as these three single entities disengage. They're going to wheel around and try and find the right avenue to attack. It is Conquest, so yeah, I mean, Mazdamundi and the Dread Saurian probably could push up and just try and park themselves on the objective here. Ruination of Cities there. Oof, just a triple whip on dice roll. That is most unfortunate. But at least while he's doing this maneuver, the Skink machine guns mounted on the Shredder are going to continue firing away. Got their machine gun blowpipes and volleys of javelins. Giant Spirit Leech hand appears in the camera to signify that Spirit Leech has been thrown into the pool, or it's, you know, like a bucket in the ocean of the HP of Shredder of Lustria, but still, it's something. There's a net and banishment on the Grog Hooves as well, since they basically don't have any ranged attacks except the Shredder. Makes a lot of sense, but we'll probably fast forward a little bit. as both players kind of reform here. The Lizardmen taking up their defensive position on the conquest objective, and Beastmen can tend to just let their units rest for the time being. I mean, granted, the Lizardmen are also resting, so both players kind of restoring the vigor to their units. Largely is going to favor the Lizardmen because they have more elite units, they have more to gain from gaining more vigor, but he also gets more Winds of Magic to throw down a Purple Sun, so that probably evens things out a little bit more. Groghooves are going to pull up and try and throw whatever the ammunition they have left. Beastman player probably wishing he had a lot more throwing axes right now, but also this is giving Mazda Mundi time to potentially be casting some Apotheoses. I don't know, given he's used a lot of Winds of Magic on other stuff. I don't know how many he has left, but it's something to consider. And again, the single entities, you see both the Beastmen's monstrous infantry characters get screened away while the Blood Brute is forced to just, you know, like 6 arms, 3 arms, or how many does he have? 4 arms? Anyway, 2 arms per lizard. It's not enough when you're facing the heftiest lizards of all time. The girth cannot be contained. Ultimately, it's not looking great for the Beastmen here. I don't even have to really pull up the health bars too much to know that. I can just intuitively know that by looking at what's happening. They're getting blown up all over the place. Yeah, and these single entities in particular are really struggling. Gorbul's probably going to buy the farm here in honor of Heir of Carthage. We'll see, maybe not. Ooh, he's getting brave. Get brave charging back in to certain doom. Doom Boy. Yeah. And Bray Shaman is also here, getting pounded. He's going to very wisely get terrified away, if he can get away before getting... Oh, that's it for Gorbul. Nope, he's got 70 HP left. Okay. That should be a shatter for him, though. I mean, he's got, like, less than 1% of his HP left. So, is it less than 1%? Does he have 7,000 HP? I don't even know. Probably not that much. Anyway, regardless... Very fun stuff. Almost 3,000 damage value from Mazda Mundi. Over 3,000. Almost 3,600 damage value for the Shredder. 23,000 damage dealt there. 25,000 damage dealt by Mazda Mundi. Definitely did some more chaff clearing with his AoEs, but nonetheless, that is what you need, and that's all you needed, really. Star Chamber Guardians actually as well. Again, back to my original point of, like, yes, but... Elite Halberd equals extra single entity, basically, in a situation like this, where you're forced to fight on top of it. Dutch Skink very wisely forcing that engagement to occur there. And as a result, yeah, the single entities, the Beastmen, just really struggled to be effective here. Bray Shaman notwithstanding, he, of course, with his magic, was able to get some pretty good value, throwing down those Purple Suns, Spirit Leeches, and whatnot, but ultimately... a nasty combination, and this is definitely a combination that can give a lot of melee-centric factions, or monster-centric factions in particular, major problems, because it's so much HP to get through, and in particular, the Shredder, you know, because of its ROR status, it has better stats, it's got the Skink machine guns, and it's also got an additional leadership debuff that can make it incredibly hard to deal with for some factions. Obviously, it's a huge target as well, so most factions with missiles, like dedicated, you know, good missiles, aren't going to have as much issue, but you certainly can get away with using it against those factions if you build into it. Just the cost is going to limit your army size, so that is something you have to take into consideration. Try and take a lot of kind of cheap, fast units, a lot of maybe Skink Infantry and Feral Cold ones, stuff like that. But anyway, this combination here, it's, yeah, for like Warriors of Chaos, Vampire counts, Beastmen, I'd imagine. I haven't seen it recently versus like Khorne or Nurgle, but I could see it potentially being quite good there as well. Yeah, with well executed, but just, it's so much girth, so much power. Key really is to protect and make sure that the Dread Saurian doesn't take too much damage. I mean, 41 melee defense is really not amazing for a unit this expensive. It does have 15,000 HP, and percentage-based healing, of course, is going to be very good on it, but yeah, it is one nice thing. Even though the Dread Saurians, I think there's a little bit of misconception sometimes, especially with campaign players, because they see this and they think, oh, this should be able to kill pretty much anything, but Dread Saurians really should be anti-large, you know, not necessarily bonus, but anti-large up here in terms of their traits. and specifically anti-monster. Like, yes, they can kill cavalry too and monstrous infantry, but really they're at their best when they're fighting other single entities. They're able to take full advantage of their massive weapon strength, and if they, especially other big monsters, they just seem to destroy. So that's kind of a consideration, right? So like in campaign, if you're thinking about, they might not be super viable until honestly like later in the higher difficulties, when your enemy factions might be taking like actual monster spams against you, right? But if even against like lower tier armies that have a lot of missiles, the Saurians can struggle just because they're such huge targets. From a multiplayer's perspective, right, like factions who you might think will take potentially scary monsters that you want to deal with, or just, cause problems in that way, Dread Saurian is worth a consideration for sure, and Mazdamundi is one of the best pairings, because it adds so much more to that equation, right? An extra 10,000 HP, and some nice AoE damages, support abilities. I mean, he himself can get quite expensive, and that is basically like a third to half of your army, right? But it's definitely can be very effective. So hopefully you enjoyed that. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.